So last night, to cure my boredom and help myself fall asleep, I decided to listen to an interview done by Jack Dorsey with CNN. The reason for this was because The Hill put an article out on Twitter, and upon reading the article I realised it wasn't entirely true, and I needed context. Now for you, I could do a full response video to the CNN video, but we all know how fake news like to handle people critiquing their stuff. Strike here, strike there, everyone gets a strike. They're generous like that. Instead, I can tell you a few things. Firstly, Jack Dorsey's voice is a lot deeper than I expected. Second, an answer frequently used by Jack Dorsey during this interview was how Twitter started 12 years ago, its original purpose, and how it had, over time, become more
big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Charged in certain areas of Twitter, because Twitter isn't just that one thread, it is this vastly complex network. He also mentioned how there's only one tool that users have available to them, and that is to follow. He's wrong. You also have other facilities, but apparently, and this seems to be lost on a number of people who disagree fundamentally with other people but are too bloody-minded to listen to that person's argument or agree to disagree and simply go their separate ways, in that they, instead of muting the person, which they can do, which I've done once, you know who you are, I'm never unmuting you on Twitter. They instead push to try and get that person removed from the platform. Now Jack did also speak at length about those that create echo chambers. Whether they are good or bad or not, that's not up for debate today, I don't give a damn. If you want an echo chamber, go ahead. We just call them DM groups, I guess. Or Steve Shives. Echo chamber 1 of 1. I wonder if his wife is blocked. Doesn't matter. He spoke about how, certainly in politics, it is very divisive, and it gets very aggressive. I saw recently Sophane, my friend Sophane, getting very irritated because he was getting criticisms from somebody about Adam Ray Swarsky, a YouTuber I thought had since left the platform because of his stupidity at getting involved with the race realists.
Hey, Dio, you seem pretty upset. Go back to the dilation station.
No.
But I won't deny it was lucrative while it lasted, I'm sure. Interesting to note, though, the guy that was railing on Sophane didn't seem to realise that Sophane did call him out, and then when the gentleman realised Sophane did, he decided to just denigrate it instead. Nice shift of the goalpost, but that kind of aggro, certainly when it comes to politics, because that's what it was all about, was quite sad, really, because it pushes a lot of people away from the platform. Now, this platform is dying anyway. Twitter has not helped itself. Granted, and a lot of people on one particular side will say, well, you kept Alex Jones on the platform, he is suspended, but you've kept him on the platform when everyone else got rid of him. Surely he's done something to breach your terms of service. He probably has. And for the life of me, I can't think why he hadn't gotten rid of Alex Jones. Especially when there were a number of other creators or Twitter users that were removed anyway, holding somewhat right-leaning beliefs. Now, because of what he said, the quote from The Hill was used. The quote reads, by the way, as follows: "We need to constantly show that we are not adding our own bias, which I fully admit is more left-leaning. But the real question behind the question is, are we doing something according to political ideology or viewpoints? And we are not. Period." For a lot of people, with the recent purges of a number of accounts, this doesn't stack up, because unfortunately no actual statement is being given as to why these particular accounts have been terminated, which then just reinforces those tinfoil hats. Maybe that would be a good policy for Twitter, when it removes an account, provides an explanation, and Jack, you being one of the founders, would be a perfect person to do that, to issue a statement as to why that person was removed, especially if they have a larger following. For example, Gavin McInnes. When he was removed from Twitter, you could have given a statement and stated why, instead of using very vague language. This is why I am somewhat concerned that when you sit before the Senate Intelligence Committee next month on the issue of Russia's election interference, you're not really going to be able to provide them much information. In fact, I'd argue you're more than likely going to look as embarrassing as Mark Zuckerberg, who drank water like data.
Time limits will be and must be strictly enforced given the numbers that we have here today. If you're over your time, Chairman Thune and I will make sure to let you know.
And I'd argue data was more human. And I would like to point out now, when Facebook was grilled about political views and the attacks on conservatives on the platform of Facebook, Zuckerberg gave no answer. He sucked. It was embarrassing. It did him no favours. It is highly likely you're going to be subpoenaed by the House Energy and Commerce Committee because of the allegations of discrimination, these very allegations I mention, against conservatives on the platform. This is reinforced because not many people who are on the left side have been very public with their being removed off the platform. Now, to get back on track, the part that CNN wanted to focus on and the part that you spoke quite heavily on was politics Twitter, which you point out was quite divisive. The section of Twitter where people go to argue with each other over ideology to the point where they end up rage quitting or just continuing pointlessly, which then inevitably leads to the character assassination of the person you're debating, because you have either exhausted your arguments and refused to concede, or you somehow don't know where your mute or block buttons are. I would offer tips for this, but since I only go to Twitter to post videos, share things that amuse me, like this recent claim I got while recording for a Sammich Wench video that is my favourite one, for audio that is from 2 years ago. LOL. Or to get sexual with people, because quite frankly, I cannot be bothered with arguments. It's probably why I don't gain many followers at the moment, because I'm not that chatty on Twitter. Now, to get back on track, he mentioned unhealthy debate that is quite contentious and you really should walk away from, because it all comes from outrage. This is the problem though. People react to outrage. They moral grandstand. They jump on a bandwagon. That's how it works. It's one of the fundamental flaws with Twitter. For example, if you don't like someone, you quote retweet them, and if you have a big enough platform, your followers will dogpile the person that you've quote retweeted. Sean Head is a perfect example of someone who did this quite regularly for a few years. I don't know if she does it now, but I remember you doing it to Hunter Avalon. It was quite sad and pathetic. Other flaws would include the fact that Twitter is a platform where you only have words and a character limit. I'm not saying you should increase the character limit, because now that you have, the arguments are still there and they're still just as bad. It's just now people articulate themselves a little more and still continue arguing, which seems ridiculous to me. I just don't get it. Maybe I'm not woke enough, or maybe I drink too much, even though I barely drink at all. I guess it doesn't really matter. My views on Twitter are quite simple. Its original purpose for most people was to say, I ate a donut today. I like toast. And then crack a few jokes like, you know you're getting old when you go and put your food in the washing up bowl and your plate in the bin. I've done that. It was quite embarrassing. I guess it's not much of a joke, it's more of an anecdote. But the point still stands. Twitter has, and I will accept, many different areas. And obviously it's all very complex based on who you follow. Trends will show and are customized to you to an extent, or your region, and of course what your followers and those that you follow tweet out. It all ties in nicely to the kind of environment you experience on Twitter. So when someone rage quits like Will Wheaton, we have to assume that his rage quitting isn't because of Alex Jones, but because he's not getting his own way, and he believes he should get it because of that lovely blue hue in his hair.
Dickhead, you're such a dickhead. And everybody knows it, everyone but you're a dickhead.
Which I think looks rather lame. And I say this as somebody who once had very long, bright neon green hair that went all the way down to his lower back. Yeah, that was me. I'm not showing pictures. Now, to finish this ramble, because it is quite frankly just that, Jack Dorsey, when I said he mentioned the past a lot about how Twitter started, he showed a glaring weakness in his plans for moving Twitter forward. He hadn't considered what would happen. Granted, Twitter is one of those pioneering services. Essentially, it was the better version of Bebo. Yeah, I had a Bebo at one point. That was probably my first social media site, next to MySpace, which I was also bullied into using. Thank you, housemates. Go Pirates. This shows to me that he is not someone who has any business acumen. He can't plan for the future and take the business forward if he can't perceive or conceive of possibilities that could happen. He spoke about how K-pop was empowering in conversation, but how politics was toxic and very polarized. Politics has always been divisive, and so's K-pop, oddly. You just need to dig a little deep, and you'll find it. It's like when you go looking in the little weeb section. Right at the heart of it, you'd probably see Miss Misa trying to out-weeb a Japanese person. Konnichiwa. In all corners of all segments, sections, categories, whatever you want to call it, of Twitter, there are people that fight. Everywhere. Politics is at the centre of it because one of the biggest, quotes, conservatives hasn't been removed from the platform, and I don't mean Alex Jones. I mean Trump. He's not a conservative really, though, let's face it. But he also uses it to make announcements, make threats, in a very, what some deem to be unpresidential way. I think it's amusing, quite frankly. I wish my politicians used Twitter as much as he did, because honestly, I'd love to go 12 rounds with my Prime Minister on Twitter. The interview is about 13 minutes long, and it is quite interesting to listen to. It's interesting to get his perspective, but it's also interesting to understand what he thinks. There are so many weaknesses within Jack Dorsey and how he approaches things, how he has developed Twitter over time. A number of the statements he makes in this video contradict what he has actually done on the platform. While I commend him for not kicking Alex Jones off the platform, I cannot commend him when he contradicts what he says is his reasoning for not removing him by doing it to other people who have done things that are nowhere near as bad as that of Alex Jones. But it all seems to be those who are leaning more politically right. The shadow banning, by the way, is utterly ridiculous. I'm QFD shadow banned. What the hell? What's wrong with the quality of what I put out? Do you need me to hit on you or something? I'm not going to, by the way. It's that nose ring. Let's just say it's that. Anyway, I do apologise this is more of a ramble to what I would ordinarily put out, but I did want to talk briefly about it. So I hope everyone has a lovely Monday, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your arse.
Imagine my shock